So I did something today that I hadn't done in a long time, like in years. I cooked a dish that was one of my favorite dishes, and that happened to be also loved by someone related to me, although that person is no longer here with us in body. Anyway, I remember when I first cooked that dish for this person, let's call her Kitty. She loved it. And because she was such a good cook herself, I very much appreciated and basked in her approval and enthusiasm over my dish. It was a simple enough dish to cook. Rice, vermicelli, only just cooked, mixed in with barely cooked grated carrots that had been seasoned with garlic, a couple of dried chilies, some ground and roasted dried shrimp and shrimp paste, finely chopped onions and garlic, and then, when it was all put together, garnished with some fresh lemon juice. There. I've pretty much given you the whole recipe, and you can try it if you like. Anyway, Kitty's enjoyment of my fried noodle dish and her uncharacteristic generosity of praise, she wasn't always forthcoming with it, was something that I enjoyed, at least until I didn't. That is, when I was asked to prepare that dish at a time, in a moment when I simply was not in the mood. Mind you, it wasn't Kitty who asked me. It was someone else who, and let's give credit where credit is due. I mean, and I could qualify that, but let's not go into that now. But in honesty, it was someone else who was really batting for me, and by that I mean they were really trying to win me more brownie points from Kitty. I know, aren't we such game players, these egos of ours? So I did cook those noodles, but I dare say I probably breathed a lot of toxic fumes into it with my resentment and my begrudging. And oh my goodness, when I think of it now, and I have thought many times about it since that event all those years ago, I have cringed, and in my mind I have apologized profusely for having been so begrudging, given that Kitty hardly ever asked me to do anything. So yes, I did prepare the dish and Kitty did eat it, but I honestly don't think she enjoyed it as much as she had on the previous occasions that I'd cooked it. And that is because it wasn't infused with the joy and the love that I had, felt in when I had cooked it before. And that brings me to the subject of this video, and that is, it is never what we do as such, but how we do it. The attitude and the type of energy that we put into it that really matters, that makes a difference, that colors and tones and flavors the situation or the moment or their interaction. And the same goes for the words that we say too. I think we're all so good at saying the right thing, but our feelings don't always match the words we say, do they? I mean, we might congratulate someone for some accomplishment, but inside, we might be churning with resentment and thoughts like, what did they do to deserve that? Or, That really should have been me. Oh, that's so unfair. Life's so unfair. Look how desperate she or he is. Or we might say the words, that's great, but nowhere in our body-mind are we actually feeling it. Or when we're in a conversation, we might ask a question that suggests, seems to be so beautifully dressed as an interest in what the other person has to say, but really, we're just waiting to use their response as a launching pad for our rebuttal or attack or put down. Have you ever done things like that? And have you been on the receiving end of such actions or words? Saying or doing the right or the good thing, but not really feeling the rightness or the goodness, the love, if you like. I know I've done that. Much more in the past, I'm glad to say, than in recent times, because I have made a conscious choice to be honest in my response. But at the same time, I do understand why I have done it. I don't want to hurt or upset people. At least that's the ego's reasoning. I want to please people. But why? When I look at it, I see that it's not so much that I don't want people to be hurt or upset or pleased per se, but I don't want them to be hurt or upset or not pleased with me. That's the big part that the ego won't let you see. I don't want them to have a bad image or impression of me. So these days, if I'm not actually feeling it, there are a couple of options that I draw on, depending on the moment. For instance, I might simply refrain from saying or doing anything. Or I might press that pause button in my head and search within myself to find something that I can say or do sincerely in response. And you know, the odd thing is it may have nothing to do with a particular matter or situation at hand. For example, if someone is being congratulated for some accomplishment, and if I'm not necessarily feeling the joy of it, I might look for something about that person that I do feel the joy of and say something about that instead. Yeah, it may not be what the person expected to hear in that situation, but it is something honest and, in that sense, loving. And something else that I've trained myself to do, and which is to watch the unpleasant feeling within me, that resistance within me, and the thoughts swirling around it, so that I recognize in that moment that they are thoughts and feelings that are just habit. They aren't me. And so that kind of distancing helps me to shift to a better feeling place from where I can actually appreciate the other person or the situation. It doesn't happen all the time, but more times than it ever used to. And the great thing about this is when I do this, it leads me down a pathway where I can be actually genuinely more interested in wanting the other person to feel joy rather than to avoid any kind of grievance they might have towards me. Do you know what I mean? But there's something else I want to say about this skill we have all acquired of saying or doing the right or the acceptable or the approval-worthy thing while thinking and feeling something quite different. This internal inconsistency or incongruency that we've all learned to live with and, in a sense, maladapted to. I want to say a couple of things. That it does a couple of things. On the one hand, it contributes to our underlying sense of dis-ease or unrest, which settles upon our, that beautifully gorgeous and radiant light within us, which is our true nature. It settles like dust on a mirror, preventing that light from shining through as brightly and lovingly as it could. And the other thing that it does, I feel, is that it makes us more distrustful of someone else's words or actions towards us, since, we're all too familiar with how incongruent they might be, because we've experienced that incongruence within ourselves. So, what about you? What are your thoughts on this? What are your experiences? How do you respond when you're not feeling it? I'd love to hear. And do you agree that it's not so much what we do or say, but how we do or say it? In the meantime, much love, and may your heart beat to the rhythms of peace. Hey everybody, I know it's so easy to forget. I do it myself so often. But please, if you did like this video, do hit the like button, do subscribe, do share, and most of all, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much.